I'm Rob Reinhardt with Canada's Barbecue School and Prairie Smoke and Spice. Tonight, we're cooking Wagyu Tri-Tip on the Yama. This is a stunning piece of beef. This is Brant Lake Farms out of Okotoks area, Alberta. The finest Canadian beef you can buy. You can see the marbling, rich, lots of wide white streaks running through there. As with any tri-tip, you can see that the grain switches directions halfway through. I'm gonna take a little trick here, and I'm just gonna notch the meat now. That's my signal later on that my slices are gonna run in that direction. Tri-tip is not the most tender cut of beef out there, so we want to make sure we're carving it against the grain. That little notch there helps us do exactly that. When it's time to get in there and season this thing, we're going to go with something that allows the flavor of that beef to shine. Our go-to Prairie steak shake, a steak rub that was developed to let the beef flavor shine through. We're going to hit it with just a light layer of mustard that uses a bit of a binder here. And our goal here today is to cook this using the reverse flow technique. We're cooking it on the Yama. We're gonna fire up that Yama grill shortly. We're gonna grill this thing with indirect heat for a little while. We're gonna bring it up to a temperature of about 120 Fahrenheit. And at that point, we're gonna get in there and we're gonna remove that beef and crank that fire up as hot as we can get it. We're gonna sear the beef right at the end of the cooking process. We're gonna monitor the temperature inside that smoker as we go, just for documentation's sake. Okay, let's get that beef shake on there. Fairly generous amount. You can consider this a really thick steak for the most part. I don't want to cut back on the seasoning. As this meat renders and cooks, a lot of the moisture will come to the surface, a lot of that fat will render up to the surface, and it'll drip off and carry some of that spice rub with it. So we want to make sure we have enough on here that flavor is going to shine through at the end. Let's go to the grill. The charcoal we're using, none other than big hard chunks of Hellrazr Tex-Mex. Oak and mesquite coal here, guys. Burns hot, burns with lots of flavor. Let's get that spread out. Might have added a little too much here. These are some big chunks. We'll get that sorted out and light her up. The charcoal's in, let's light her up. As you can see, our fire's going. One little chunk of Furtado Farms apple there. It's a mild smoke, but I'm not looking to overpower this tri-tip with heavy smoke flavor. The fireboard's hooked up so we can monitor our grill temperature as we go. The last step, let's get our diffuser plate in there. This is going to give us that indirect heat we need. Hellrazr sitting at 134 on our probe on the left side. Not hot yet, but hot enough that we can start cooking. Set up for our cook today. Open vent, closed vent, open vent. That heat will rise through, come up through that opening. We want that smoke escaping right through here. Okay, let's open her up. Get our tri-tip on the grill. I'm gonna have my fatter end of the tri-tip on the right side. That's where the heat and smoke are coming out. Hit that fatter end of the tri-tip first. Let's carry on. One more note about our setup today. I did stick a probe in that tri-tip, connected to our trusty fireboard, so we can be notified when that meat hits 120. Okay guys, it's only been about 20 minutes since I put that tri-tip on. The pit's where I want it temperature-wise. We're gonna close that air intake. About 90% closed. We'll just open it a little crack there. Doesn't take a lot of airflow to keep this pit at temperature. I did flip that tri-tip over so we get even heating from top to bottom. Those heavy steel grates transfer a lot of heat into the bottom of the roast. This gives us more even cooking from top to bottom. All right guys, my fireboard has alerted me that the tri-tip is pretty close. Let's get in there with our LavaTools, take a closer look. Seeing 115, 120 towards the edge there. So dead center cold is 115, 118 right now. We'll give this about 4 more minutes. Then we're gonna remove it. We're gonna crank up that fire as hot as we can get it, and we're gonna sear that baby. We are at total elapsed cook time of 30 minutes. Tri-tip has reached 120 internal. Okay, Still looking fairly moist. We're gonna take care of that. We're gonna give it that crust it deserves. Stay tuned. This tri-tip's been off and resting for a few minutes. Unfortunately, it's resting in its own juices. And for a really good sear, we want to make sure that the surface of that meat is dry. So we're just going to blot it lightly with a paper towel. We're trying not to take off too much seasoning here, but it is possible I took off a little bit. So I'll just give it a quick re-season there, pat it in nicely. That's ready for the grill again. Time to sear that tri-tip. Lots of heat here. We're going to keep a close eye on it. We'll flip it after 2 or 3 minutes. We don't want to burn it. That's the 3-minute mark. Let's take a look. I'm happy with that. Let's carry on. Let's take a peek. That's our sear. Let's carve this beast up. We're gonna let it rest for about 10 minutes before we do that. Ready to carve that tri-tip? Remember, we're carving against the grain. And we made those little cuts before we rubbed and grilled this roast. So we know exactly what direction we want our slices to run in. So let's do that. I'm just gonna cut it in half along with the grain right now. You can kind of see the texture that we finished at, about 135 internal. You can still see that beautiful, beautiful fat marbling through there, that Wagyu beef. I'll set that aside. Let's start carving. So tender. Sharp knife really helps get those nice slices. Another close-up again, you can see that web of fat marbling running through that. I gotta take a nibble. So tasty. So tasty. Guys, if you ever have an opportunity to try this Brant Lake Wagyu, it is fantastic. Okay, that's what we're dealing with there, guys. So rich, so tender, so delicious. So that's a wrap on our Wagyu tri-tip cooked on the Yama. If you're in Western Canada and you have the opportunity to try the Brant Lake Farms beef, I strongly recommend it. It is fantastic. The Yama grill, such a fun grill to cook on. Enjoy every session I have on that grill. If you have any questions about this cook, guys, feel free to add them in the comments. I will answer them. Happy to share, happy to help. If you're new to this channel, feel free to subscribe. Don't forget to click that notification bell so you'll be notified as new content is added. Cheers, guys. Thanks for sticking around.